Hello humanity, it's your boy HB Tellum. I've got these things called defects of character. One of them is procrastination, the action of delaying or postponing something. Defects of character are addressed in steps 6 and 7 in 12-step fellowships. You've probably heard of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or one of the other 12-step anonymous programs. It's been a while since I posted my last video, and I'm grateful for how full my life has become, but I'd be lying to you if I said that I haven't been engaging in procrastination. My intention here is to share my process so that it can benefit your own, even if you're not in a 12-step program. Maybe you're wondering if I'm in AA or NA. Well, let's see here. Tradition 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. Yeah, sorry. They're called anonymous for a reason. I'm not a representative of anything but myself, so let's keep that up front in this video. When talking to people about step work, I often refer to it as scientifically formulated shadow work. And to me, that's what it is. Let's not hide from our past, nor shut the door on it. Let's not hate ourselves. Let's learn to love ourselves by understanding ourselves. Super quick background. I spent all of my teenage years and most of my 20s believing I was unable to cope with life without the use of drugs. If you're wondering what drugs I use your imagination. I probably spent multiple years addicted to it. At the end of the road, I was on the verge of homelessness when I finally decided to ask for help. I went to treatment, then I committed myself to a life in recovery in a 12-step program. Everything I have in my life, including this channel with less than 100 subscribers, thank you, I owe to recovery. Russell Brand has an amazing book called Recovery that I recommend you check out if you'd like to understand the principles and application of the 12 steps in your life, even though you are not an addict. I'm glad this book exists because I do believe these steps could benefit anybody. What I'm offering here is an expression of gratitude for this thing that saved my life. Anyways, like I said, I've been working steps 6 and 7. Which is, step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. And step 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Super short steps overview. Super short steps overview. Say that 5 times fast. Super short steps overview. The steps go in order for a reason. So here's an incredibly short overview of them in relations to steps 6 and 7. Step 1, admit something in your life is fucking with the rest of your life. Step 2, surrender to asking for help from others and from God to help restore you to healthier ways of thinking and behaving. Step 3, practice surrender and further develop your faith. When you notice your behaviors are bids for control in your life, let them go. Step 4, look at the story of your life as thoroughly as possible. Namely, how you behaved, what your intentions were, and how you engaged in selfish and destructive behavior patterns. This isn't to blame others, it's to look at yourself. 5, admit to yourself, God, and another human being the things that you wrote in your 4th step. Hopefully these 3 beings, yourself, God, and another human being, can help get you to the exact root nature of these patterns. And that brings us to the topic of this video, steps 6 and 7. Step 6, we acknowledge the content of our character and become ready and willing to let go of the aspects that no longer serve us. Key word here, become ready. This is an awareness step and a willingness to change step. Step 7, as a result of the previous steps, we are able to and absolutely must practice a posture of humility as we ask our higher power to remove these toxic behaviors. Highlight on humility here and an emphasis that it is not our power that will remove these toxic traits. Now onto the defects. We all have behaviors we'd like to release. I interpret defects as characteristics of our personality that manifest out of balance, mostly out of fear and out of wounding. These are aspects of our personality that can actually be really beneficial, but they come out as a defect after they are distorted by our shadow. Example, one of my big ones, judgment. I consider myself an insightful person. I feel I can often see what is underneath the words and posture of people around me, even when I don't know them that well. A lot of insight is pattern recognition, and I love to look at patterns. This is good. This is discernment. However, when I cast another into the darkness or condemn them to be contained in the box of my perception of them, this is judgment out of balance. This is a misuse of insight. This is a defect. Step 6 came for me in an interesting time in my life. I was in a relationship that I desperately wanted to work, even though it wasn't. As I was writing out my defects of character, I was seeing myself engage in them and how I was showing up in my relationship. It was psychedelic, really. I would often see my defect written out on the page in my step work in my imagination as I was acting on the defect in my relationship. Oftentimes, this was really uncomfortable, but it was profound and humbling. It felt like grace, despite the discomfort. The relationship ended 2 days before I went over this step with my sponsor. Little bit of synchronicity. Synchronicity. Y'all know what time it is? Yeah. We all synced up, cause that's how we live. Yeah, we synced up. Yeah, we synced up. Why? Cause we see it all. We see it all aligned. And when it's aligned, we know it is called. What's it called? That's right. Synchronicity, y'all. He then gave me a homework assignment to read this book called Drop the Rock before moving on to step 7. In that book, they talked about the 7 deadly defects, which became the basis of this video. Pride, envy, gluttony, sloth, greed, lust, and wrath. These are the defect archetypes. And I decided to give myself a little bit of extra homework before moving on to writing on my 7th step. I wanted to know which of these defects archetypes were most present for me. So I went through the defects I wrote out in my step work, and if they either came from or caused one of these 7 deadly sins, I listed it with the sin. Then I tallied it all up. This informed my process and what to work on first. I decided to start with my top 3 deadly sins. What truly matters is application. All of the awareness in the world doesn't count for much if we don't act accordingly. So the practice is to use awareness gained from this exercise to look for opportunities to act accordingly. For the purposes of this video, we will look at my most prevalent 3 and stay mindful of how to meet them with the spiritual principle that alleviates them. My number 1, pride. Yeah. There's one posture that will address pride in its many manifestations: humility. The more I've prayed for humility and kept it up front in my process, the more I've realized how subtle its presence and application is. Humility is a moment-to-moment surrender, which creates spaciousness for a more loving awareness and a much deeper connectivity to the world around me. Humility is all about space. Its presence within us creates internal spaciousness, while its application outside us allows us to inhabit the proper amount of space. A common misconception about humility is that it is purely to bring the ego down when we think we are bigger than we actually are. This is only half true. Humility also functions to bring us up when we think we are smaller than we actually are. I've heard humility is a principle that keeps us right-sized, and I'm just now understanding the poignancy of this phrase. We also benefit from unpacking what sort of pride we are talking about. In Drop the Rock, it says many of us think our value as a human being is in what we do or don't do, rather than who we are. We think our value is about results: the car we drive, the person we marry, the house we live in, the job we have. We shifted the emphasis from who to what. I opened up in a men's circle recently and said, I always felt I had greatness. To which my dear friend replied, you don't have greatness, you are great. He also pointed out that I was equating this greatness to what I was aiming to accomplish. Pride had me think that I wasn't worthwhile until I proved it with achievement, which is something I had been conditioned to believe. The truth is, we are not worthy because of what we're worth. We are worthy because of who we are. I am worthy because I aim to achieve a life that sustains itself with the substance of helping others. I am worthy because I have loving intentions. And on a deeper level, I am worthy just because. No strings attached. God is love and God loves me. And I am worthy of that. It's okay to feel pride in our accomplishments. But a slight adjustment to what we are feeling pride for is how we can apply humility. My goal and measure of success is to achieve financial freedom from authentic expression, whether that be from YouTube or elsewhere. When I achieve this goal, my pride will be for all the work I did despite self-doubt, and for starting and finishing projects despite perfectionism and fear being present. Not because people liked me enough to give me money and support my work, not because of validation, but because of how much I've grown and how much I must grow to achieve this accomplishment. This is humility, tempering pride. My number 2. Lust. Oh boy, this one brought up a lot of heaviness and confusion for me. Lust is an onion with many layers within us, especially if we have sexual trauma. Not to mention that we have a lot of cultural baggage around sex, including repression, excess, and association with shame. My fourth step is littered with different phases of my sexual exploits. From being a man whore to abstinent in a bid for control because I didn't trust myself. From being an outright liar to being dishonest through omission. Then over the past couple years, being more balanced, but still falling short in having integrity, especially with myself when my sex drive gets involved. I prayed a lot about this. How it was answered was a call to address intimacy and sex. In my life, I confused these two as being the same thing. The moment a woman was intimate with me, I sought sex as fast as possible in hopes of being confirmed in my worthiness and desirability. This caused a lot of damage and deprived my heart of a lot. It created a hunger in my heart that couldn't be satiated. Even though I haven't been promiscuous for a long time, I have stayed in relationships that weren't working because of lust. I've engaged in dishonesty with myself and my partner because of my wounding and how it shows up in my sex life. All of this is called for a break in sex as I heal my relationship to intimacy. There's also levels to how our shadow hides in the crevices of our heart once the opportunity for sex gets involved. Just because I'm better than I was before doesn't mean I can't continue to get better. And Drop the Rocket says, lust in all areas associated with love and sex is an area we need to closely examine in the light of our spiritual values. What do we really think of other people? Are they objects to be used and discarded, to be fondled and played with? Or are they people with feelings and hearts and depth, to be cherished and nurtured and honored, just as we would wish to be? How do we treat the people we love? Humility also helps with lust, especially for me since pride seems to influence most of my process. However, I lean more towards integrity being the main principle that can help here. So in terms of application, I must apply integrity on a deeper level. I must really be honest with myself, my intentions, and my partner. Integrity in our sex lives is a moment-to-moment thing. An application requires communication, especially when we fear being honest might prevent us from getting laid. A friend suggested recently to be mindful of the increments, which makes perfect sense to me. There are increments of boundaries in the exploration of intimacy with a partner as it unfolds. Slow down, communicate, and look at the motions from one layer to the next. If we look at intimacy as a dance, then we must be honest in every move. What I'm learning about intimacy and integrity is that as much as I didn't practice integrity with other people in my sex life in my past, I also didn't practice intimacy with myself. And I didn't actually listen to my heart and to my body and what I was okay with. So being mindful of myself and having integrity with myself and not giving in to just desire when my heart is saying otherwise, that is an important part of balancing and tempering intimacy and sex and not giving in to the defect of lust. My number 3, sloth. This is a defect that I worked on a lot before I got to step 6. Apathy, laziness, comfort seeking, all of these behavior patterns that cause inaction were most definitely the biggest hindrance to my growth. I've relapsed multiple times since I came into recovery back in 2017. And I know for a fact that sloth was the main contributor to the spiritual state that allowed relapse to occur. Pride is my number 1 for a reason. It is tied to lust and sloth. I just didn't know it until the step work showed me. Pride's main influence on sloth is in my perfectionism. My perfectionism makes me compare myself to an imaginary version of myself that doesn't exist. I should be perfect at something as soon as I start. And when I'm not, the pain of my inexperience and inadequacy will make the process of getting better at it unbearable if I don't surrender. The reason that I didn't record this video until now is because I had to rearrange my entire room so that it looked good on camera. I had to make sure that the lighting was right, and it was during the day, even though I have a work schedule and a lot of other things to attend to. So I engaged in procrastination, the action of delaying or postponing something. Pride will make me beat myself up for not having worked on the thing when I first felt called to it. I should be further along is a real obstacle in growth because it is an energy sink. Sloth is the fear of the work, and the work that truly matters will bring up the entire spectrum of the shadow. Self-pity, self-doubt, self-criticism, lack of self-worth, and even self-loathing. When I give into sloth and fall into procrastination and apathy, depression follows with its companion, self-pity. When self-pity takes a hold in my awareness, I am in danger of being completely consumed by it. Quote, Self-pity is the most destructive of emotions. Self-pity is sloth and pride working in perfect tandem. I will project onto the story of my life why I cannot do my work, blaming my parents or my past for all of my shortcomings, and once the blame is not my own, I've given away my autonomy to do anything about it. The principle here is gratitude, and gratitude is an action word. I can express my gratitude moment to moment, in prayer or when speaking with others, but acting on gratitude keeps sloth at bay. Self-pity cannot survive within us if we are truly grateful. Recovery and growth is a process of commitment and accountability. I do not know what caused me to be an addict, and me being an addict is not my fault, but it is my responsibility to become a better human and no one else's. This applies to all manifestations of maladaptive behaviors. I am the way I am because of how life unfolded, but now I have a choice, and I am grateful for that choice. Simple as that. I wanted to keep this short. I hope this helps people in their step work, and I hope it helps you if you're just trying to do better in your life. If you are human, I believe in you. That is my code. The growth process is a dance between self-forgiveness and self-determination. Be gentle, but be persistent. Commit and commune. Dance with the gentleness and gentle nudges. Giving yourself tough love is still love, but this must be done in balance. It is my belief that spiritual seeking and growth will always lead to one road: love. I act on this prayer by walking through my life with love as my guide. If my capacity to love is growing, I am on the right path. So even if I haven't met you, I love you.